forgot to press the go live button. So we're officially live, and thank you all. Sorry for my mishap, but you are now watching J.U.K Sports Show. I am your host, King Ralph, here with my co-host, my homie, the homie Kai. What's popping?
What's popping, man? I'm good. I'm good. You got the Christmas sweater on.
Yeah, and
Festive today. You
feeling
know.
festive. You know what I mean? Had
Yeah.
my hot chocolate with my s'mores.
Right. Right.
So it is what it is, man. But how you feeling, bro?
I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling good, man. I'm embracing my ageism as I approach the big 3-0 next week, guys.
Hey,
Yeah. About a week and a day from today, I'll be the big 3-0. So other than that, man, I'm out here living.
hey, that's what's up, man. But hey,
Yeah.
send a shout out to the sponsor. You want to do any photo shoots, podcasts like what you're watching,
Mhm.
music videos, call the number on the bottom of the screen, 707 Fitboxer. And before we get jumping, man, make sure you go and follow all of our socials as well. If you're not already following, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Follow me on TikTok, Instagram,
Mhm.
Twitch at KYNGRALPH, added underscore for Twitter. Follow the show itself at J.U.K Sports Show, as well as you can watch us, any clips, the live stream itself on YouTube and Facebook, the He Say, She Say, all one word channel. We will soon be posting audio versions of the show on Apple
Yep.
Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Thank you all. Make sure go subscribe, all of that good stuff. Make sure you follow Kai as well at the House of Hoops on Instagram for all NBA breakdowns and analysis. Really good, unbiased, uncut, pure cocaine breakdowns, baby.
You make me sound like Pusha T. It's almost dry, man. You know what I'm
Pablo
saying?
Escobar. They hated Esco.
They hated Esco, man. Yo, man, the firm, man. Oh man, you a fool for that one, bro.
But jumping straight in, man, we got our 2 minute drill. Jalen Hurts
Yeah.
sucks. But it's not. The good thing though is the injury itself is one of those ones where, like, when someone flops their body on top of you, he could have easily broken his collarbone. So him having just a sprained shoulder, blessing,
Yeah.
blessings to the young fella. And so, to use his name, pun intended, does this hurt his MVP chances?
Um. Honestly, I feel like for any people who don't have him as the number one, the clear cut MVP, I feel like they're kind of hating. So I'm gonna say, just to keep it short, I don't think so. I think the only reason why I say that, Ralph, is because if they win the division, right, they clinch a playoff spot, um, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, um, they can get this game next week because the Cowboys, they wound up taking that L, right. So I think he'll be fine. He's done everything. He's only thrown 5 interceptions this year. The Eagles, I believe, are, correct me if I'm wrong, they're what, 12-1, I
Yes.
believe. Yeah, they're 12-1.
And one
He's
win,
had
that
big
one loss to
games.
the Commanders.
Right, right. The one loss to the Commanders, a division rival. We do understand that. They got the Cowboys the first time, even though Dak did not play. However, Jalen Hurts doesn't play against the offense; he plays against the defense. And also, he went spar for spar, Glock for Glock with Aaron Rodgers. He's done everything that he's supposed to do. He's kept the ball out of harm's way. Honestly, his interceptions have been spread out. He has multiple QBR ratings of over 100. Ralph. Uh, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 9 games so far over 100 QBR rating. He's won on the road. He's won at home. He's pretty much elevated that team along with the pieces that they put around him. So, respectfully, I think that the injury is a means to kind of nitpick. They'll be like, okay, he'll bring it back, but I don't think anyone else has done enough to usurp him.
I don't think so either, man. And I completely agree with you on
Mm,
that one. I think that his best chance of is just sit this one out. Gardner Minshew is no
yeah.
slouch. He's played pretty well. He has a 2-to-1 interception touchdown ratio for his career. He played on some bad teams in Jacksonville and still was able to do his thing. We had the Minshew magic. Hopefully he can muster up some of that Minshew mustache magic, and we can get in. Not we, because I'm no Eagles fan. He can get the victory.
Right.
And so I think it's actually possible. I think that the AJ Browns, the Devontae Smiths, the Miles Sanders. I think that it's enough weapons for them to be able to. It's the offense is definitely going to look different, but I think that it's a possibility, and it's definitely very likely that they can end up getting that W.
Yeah, good coaching.
Next up,
get it. Yep.
and right, high quality coaching. At the end of the day, next man up, Patriot way, like they say. And so next up, Vikings come back 33-point deficit to come back and beat the Colts. We've seen Matt Ryan in multiple comeback losses. Who gets the most blame?
Well, obviously it's going to be, for me, should I say, when I say obviously, I believe that the Colts, just as a whole in general, I believe that Jeff Saturday, you're supposed to, as a coach, go into halftime, right? And you're supposed to make sure that you continue to put the foot on the gas, so to speak, have your guys prepare. We always talk about football is a game of two halves, is a game of 4 quarters. It's literally 4 quarters. So you want to take every single quarter as, can I win this quarter? Right. That's how like Terrell Suggs used to kind of approach the football game. So I look at it that. I look at Matt Ryan putting the game in harm's way. And also I look at the defense. The defense really sold. And I look at coaching, Ralph, because all they really had to do was ice the clock with the run game with Jonathan. Like how do you go up? I've never heard that. I've never heard of a team, if you can recall, having a 36-point lead and losing. Like, that's the biggest in the history of the Vikings for them to come back and do that. And they had the weapons to do it in the Justin Jefferson and the Dalvin Cook. So for me, I have to, me personally, I'm going to give it to a collective unit, because we talked about in our show before, I'll end it with this, was Jeff Saturday and how he kind of pretty much was just privileged into that job. I have nothing against Jeff Saturday. I'm sure he's a nice guy, better analyst on TV, but I've never seen a head coach get a job like that. And so I think that because of that, I have to put the collective effort on the Indianapolis Colts for getting the blame in this game. More so them blowing the lead than the Vikings coming back.
Yeah, because I definitely like when you look at it, and nobody's numbers, like for them to have had that 33-point lead, nobody's numbers looks like, oh my God, they were blowing them off the field. I just think that the Vikings were playing bad. I think they went into it thinking like, oh, we just gonna run over them, and that's just not how you play to win the game.
Right.
Hello. to quote Herm Edwards, you play to win the game, and I don't think that they went into it thinking that was how things was going to roll. I think they went into it thinking like, all right, we're just going to run over these guys, and that's not how this game works. So I think that 90% you get Jeff Saturday, you get 10%, you get Matt Ryan, because Matt Ryan is a veteran in this game. He's the leader of the offense, although he doesn't look like not the Jeff Saturday, but the Matt Ryan, the Matty Ice of his MVP days. But at the same time, when you have that much of a lead, all you really got to do is run the ball, move the chains.
Yeah.
And then at that point, it is what it is, because it's not like the Vikings were scoring like so quickly. Like if you sit and you look at these drives, it's like they scored with 8 minutes left in the third quarter. They scored another touchdown with a minute left in the third quarter. Then they scored a touchdown with 13 minutes in the fourth. Another touchdown with 5.5 minutes in the fourth quarter. They tie the game with 2 minutes left. So at that point, you have a chance to win the game. And then you give up. Then they pretty much score with time expiring in overtime. So I think that there's so many opportunities for you to win this game, even though it's like things aren't going your way. All you really need is one stop. All you really need is one mic, like Miles would say. But like it is what it is, man. I think that it's 90% Jeff Saturday because you're the coach, and this looks really bad considering the Raiders lost to y'all. But at the same time, Jeff Saturday, this doesn't look really good because it's once again Matt Ryan is giving up this crazy amount of, although he plays no defense, but
Right,
not
right.
being able to put points on the board or at least get move the chains to where it makes it harder for them to come back is a big deal. Next up, Robert Saleh,
Say
backing
that.
his quarterback, says that he's tired. Pretty much, he's tired of the instant coffee era. People need patience. Rome wasn't built in a day. How do you agree with this?
I do agree that Rome wasn't built in a day. I do believe that a quarterback can't be assessed and evaluated in just one season unless they're just super awful. But I think you got to look at it, Ralph, in terms of the pieces that are around the quarterback and the coaching. Right, that's how you develop. Every quarterback is a system quarterback. So I think that there is credence and validity to his statement in terms of instant coffee era. However, in the form of Zach Wilson, we also have to be very cautious and also be cautious and cognizant of his actions or therefore inactions that he's had in the past in terms of lack of taking accountability for his poor play. And we saw the backlash that he got from reporters in New York. Remember that. So I think that if we were just talking about that a couple of weeks ago, or also the TV, people were talking about in the media. You had actual Jet beat reporters uh, talking about his play, and then you had, I think, what was it? Garrett Wilson. Was it Garrett Wilson or Elijah Moore who spoke out in the locker room? So I think in terms of being a leader of men, I have not seen that thus far through his actions from Zach Wilson and his ability to take accountability. So I think with Wilson there may be a little more deeper stuff going on there. So unless he matures and he's young, remember he's young, he can change. So I think that's more of Ralph really for me personally that I'm really looking at. I'm like, bro, when you're playing poorly, I don't want to say suck. When you're playing poorly, take accountability. So I think year two is going to be is it year two? Yeah, year two for him as a
Right.
full time
This is year
starter.
two.
Yeah, I think next year, excuse me, is going to really tell me everything because everyone will be healthy. You have the defense, etc. So, yeah, but I actually do agree with the overall statement that Salah is saying.
I do too, man, because I think that like it is one of those things where we're expecting people to come in day one and be the goat. And
Right.
it's like that's with the quarterback position. It's not. There's not too many people because even Peyton Manning is the goat to me, regardless of how people
Yeah.
feel about Tom Brady. Because even Tom Brady
Mhm.
didn't come in day one; he came in year two,
He was a game
and that
manager.
was where he was a game manager. So like
Yeah.
for people to just be like, I guess the thing with Zach Wilson is you want the turnovers to go down, but you want if you are going to have those turnovers, yeah, I got to stop turning the ball over because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, that's you throwing the ball away. It's not like someone's running the wrong route or whatnot. So it is one of those things where he does have to take that accountability. But also he is young, and I know I'm over here sounds kind of hypocritical in a sense because I've also been very critical and I didn't believe in him
Mhm.
as to be that quarterback of the future for them. But also he's only 23 years old. Have some patience. Aaron Rodgers, RELAX, relax. Fast break. Next up, Dame passes Clyde Drexler on the Portland Trailblazers all-time scoring list. I feel like he's one of those guys that, and I've actually had the pleasure to meet the guy. Very
Oh
nice
wow.
guy. I was a kid.
Mhm.
He was nice to me, so that's always going to go a long way with me. But
Hey.
also him as a basketball player, I feel like it's not really, he doesn't get talked about that much, especially in the era where he played going up against the likes of Michael Jordan. I
Mhm.
feel like people like him, Dominique Wilkins, they don't get the credit that they deserve being
Mhm.
that wing 2, 3 playing in that same area with Mike. How good was Clyde Drexler?
A 10-time All-Star good. A guy who I think averaged like 30, no, 27, 8 and something. I think I'm trying to pull up his stats at one point in his prime. I'm looking at specifically that 88 season. I'm looking at that 92 season. But in terms of his overall game, because I always say we can look at stats, but he's someone who is strong, who was an aerial artesian in the air, who glided through the air, who could attack the basket, had a
Clyde
mid-range game.
the
Yep.
Clyde the Glide.
Clyde the Glide had a mid-range game. He was one of the few players in during that era that you could actually rely on to actually hit a 3-point shot. And in terms of, I guess, the greatest the greatest praise or the greatest thing that you can say about Clyde Drexler is he was good. When you ask how good was he good, he was good enough to gravitate or grasp the attention of the GOAT, which is Michael Jordan. How do we know this? Because The Last Dance told us, right? And
Right.
people can say, oh, well, they tried to build up the air. No, like Michael Jordan really looked at Clyde like he knew he was better than Clyde, but that was an actual little debate there, right? And he felt the need to prove himself to Clyde on the grandest stage. Hey, I can shoot threes too, and it created the infamous MJ Shrug moment. So I
Right.
think that Clyde Drexler, you can make the case that he was the second best shooting guard on that era for with behind Michael Jordan, and obviously you have the Reggie Miller and all that kind of stuff. But Clyde Drexler was able to affect the game in different ways, Ralph, with his passing, with his defense, and his overall scoring ability. Where Reggie, ran through screens and did some other things. So I'm gonna say that Clyde Drexler, how good was he? He was good enough to be a contemporary of Michael Jordan during that time.
True.
I got
Top, and he was a top 75 player. I believe he was a top 50 player too.
he
When they
was
did the top
initially on the
50
initial
list.
list. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
he's a 5-time All NBA. He
Yeah.
was on that repeat team when the Rockets won it the second time.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Shout out to the
so I think he is
Jimmy
definitely one of those people because when you look at his numbers, there's a 3 to 4 year stretch where
Mhm.
he's shooting 30, 36 from three, 36 from three.
Yeah,
Really, it's 3.57, so we're gonna give it another 36, and then after that it's 3.55, so it's another 36. So in
yep.
that 4 year
Yep.
stretch in the 90s, while shooting 5 or 6 threes a game, he's hitting
Mhm.
36% of them. While also he had the name Clyde the Glide,
Yeah.
and he was part of that Phi Slamma Jamma team with Elijah Wan at Houston University. So I think that he's one of the people that you tape don't lie, man. Like I always say, go watch the tape. Dude was a hooper.
Yeah.
I hate that he gets overshadowed by Mike, although Mike is the GOAT.
Yeah.
But
It's just a
it should
different,
never take away from
Yeah.
his greatness and how good he actually was, because he was a heck of a player
Yeah.
with
Look,
that
look at his games,
with the
people. Like,
Trailblazers.
yeah.
I think he got his team to. I think he got to a few Western Conference Finals too. They just kept losing to the Lakers.
Mm-hmm. Magic and
And
all
so,
them.
right. And so next up, Paul Pierce was passed up by KD on this all-time scoring list. Was Paul Pierce slept on in your opinion?
By the Gen Zs, he is. I believe
Yes.
he is by the Gen Zs. Do I believe that Paul Pierce is as great as he believes he is? Not really, to be completely honest with you. However, if you're going by impact accolades and ability to perform on the big stage and reliability, he's better than Vince Carter. And Vince Carter was someone who was actually dubbed as a as Air Jordan. Remember Air
Yeah.
Vincenzi and all that kind of stuff. And so it's interesting because if you look at like the accolades and everything, and obviously context is everything, but Paul Pierce, he got the nickname the Truth, right? By Shaq. Okay, so he got that. He came through clutch many times. I remember Paul Pierce vividly because Kobe's my favorite player, winning the Finals MVP, and the Boston Celtics as a collective took out the Lakers in 5 games, not 6. It was 5 games. Paul
Right.
Pierce performed. LeBron fans, respectfully, they do not rock with Paul Pierce because they say he takes shots at LeBron. There's all that back and forth. They act like Paul Pierce is a scrub. Yet out of his own mouth, LeBron James said, if I probably had any rival, it was Paul Pierce. He said it like 2, 3 years ago. Look it up. He said that.
Right.
And if you look at their tape, Paul Pierce is like the Isaiah Thomas to is LeBron James' Isaiah Thomas, what Michael Jordan is Isaiah
Right.
is to Michael Jordan. Period. It is end of story. I
Pretty
think
much.
they're
That's actually a really good parallel.
I've always felt that, right? And their career record is, I think LeBron only has like a win or one more win than Paul Pierce. And that was when LeBron formulated the super team. So to
Right.
keep it short, Paul Pierce was a clutch player who went Glock for Glock multiple times in the playoffs and regular season, putting up 40 versus LeBron James. And he was a defender. He could defend, right? And he came up clutch in multiple moments, all while not being one of the more athletic players in the league, like a Vince, like a Kobe, like a T Mac. So he would be underneath that. I would say he would probably be underneath that tier in terms of just overall like ability and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I do believe that he's not valued by the Gen Zs. Sorry, Gen Zs.
I mean, it's just the truth, man. It is
It's a
what it is. I
mouthful.
think part of it he does it to himself with the whole
Yes.
thing when they were talking about him and D Wade. Like, come on, bro. You know you're not on that tier.
Wade was
Like,
different, man.
Yeah, like although he was a Finals MVP, he was 10-time All-Star,
Yeah.
four-time All
Mhm.
NBA.
Yeah.
He was on the All Rookie team, Hall of Famer,
Mm-hmm.
top 75 team, average 20 points, 5 and 6, 20 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 37% from three, 45 from the
Yeah.
field, 81 from free throw, had a 20 player efficiency rating.
Mm.
And he just was a gamer, man. He was one of those
Mm-hmm.
people you probably couldn't jump over a phone book, but
Right.
he was gonna get buckets,
Yeah,
and he
he could
got the
always get a bucket.
nickname the Truth
Yeah.
from Shaq.
Even in Washington, he was getting buckets. I call game.
Exactly, and so it's one of those things where even when you start to look at his peers,
Mm-hmm.
they give him a lot of praise. Some of the people we
Right.
look up to, the Steven Jacksons, the Gilbert Arenases, the Matt Barnes, the KGs, whenever they talk about him, like even the knuckleheads, when he's revered by his peers,
Right.
and I think that that's something that should get looked at and shouldn't be taken with so slightly.
Right. Right.
But next up, the coach of your team called out his squad with absolutely no effort on
Mm.
defense. Has he lost the locker room?
Yeah, definitely. Steve Clifford. And the thing is, he never had it. So here's the thing with Steve Clifford, right? Steve Clifford, when he was the Bobcats coach or whatever, before it was all bad. Like it was all bad. And so I don't think we ever had a segment on this, but I was like, yo, I wanted to. Oh yeah, we did. I said I told you I wanted to get. I said might as well just get either Frank Vogel because at least he'll get a defensive identity. Say what you want about him. He's been to a conference finals multiple times. He will instill a defensive philosophy. Or get Jay Wright. I talked about him. I said they need or infusion of youth. Instead, you bring back someone who didn't work before, right? The definition of insanity is doing something twice. So why would you bring back Steve Clifford, for this young, dumb and fun team in the Hornets to actually do anything? You look at their record, what 15th ranked in the Eastern Conference, man. When you have teams like the Pistons who are without Cade Cunningham, you have other teams. I'm not saying the Bulls are like horrible or anything, but you have teams that are struggling this year, right? In the Eastern Conference, teams that will want to tank. And so with Steve Clifford talking about effort, man, I'm like, nah, man. It's always gonna go down to the coach. It's a players' league, Ralph. It's a players' league. So me personally, from what I've seen, nah. I just don't. I don't see it, man. I think Steve Clifford just he never had the locker room. He was never the right person in the job for the job. And I blame Mitch Kupchak and my boy Milk Dud Mike for
Yeah,
for that high because that's a Mike. That's actually a Mike move, bro. Like Mike, like come on, man. Like why? Like
bringing in
so
people he likes rather than people that were right for the job.
nepotism. Let's move on.
And so next up, what we got next up here?
Oh man.
So we brought him up earlier.
Mm-hmm.
My man Dame
Yeah.
passing up Clyde Drexler on the scoring list. Some of the he has some of the most clutch playoff shots hit. We've seen his ability, even him going back and forth with Steph in the All Star game as far as shooting distance.
Yeah.
He says, and I quote, "I think Steph is the greatest ever." A lot of people would agree with that, and
Yeah.
it's a far gone conclusion at
Yeah.
this point. So at second, he continues, but I think after him, I don't see why I'm not clear cut in that conversation. He goes on to say things like difficulty of shot, his ability to
Mm.
shoot off the dribble, the
Mm.
moments,
Mm-hmm.
the big moments that he's hit those in the multiple games where he's hit 10 and more threes in a game. Why is
Mm-hmm.
he not in that conversation? Leads
Yeah.
to the question: do you agree?
Yes. I do agree. I agree with him being in the conversation. Wow, whether or not he's the second best 3-point shooter of all time, that may sound out of the world, might sound blasphemous, and then Dame fans may agree. But I agree. keep it short. He should be in there because of what do I always say, Ralph? I say any and everything in life can be argued for or against. It's how good is the argument and how many people you can convince. That's life. That's how we have GOAT debates. That's how we have things. So when we look at the shooters of all time, you think of guys like Reggie. You think of guys like Stojakovic and Bird and Ray Allen and Klay Thompson. Mark Jackson said the best shooting court duo. But Dame has for every reason like you listed, he has a case. Because when I'm looking at Ralph, when you look at the stats, he's the one out of those guys outside of from I think Steph who has 2 seasons of shooting at least 10 attempts in a game. Not only is he shooting 10 attempts from a game, Ralph, right? He's hitting it at like a 39% clip.
Right.
Hello. Like, because I'm looking at Ray, I'm looking at Reggie. I know that it's different, even though Ray did play 2012, 2013. I think his highest season was actually like 2013, but when he was older. I think his most was like 8 attempts, where Reggie's was like 7 or something like that. But they hit at 10 from a high clip, dribbling, coming off the dribble, something that guys like Clay and Reggie really didn't do, right? The defensive attention, the gravity that Dame has, shooting from the logo, right?
Right.
The clutch. Those are actual valid reasons. Where a guy like Bird could shoot ambidextrous, but Bird never really shot but so much of a percentage, and you think about the defensive attention. So I think it's one of those weird things, Ralph. Like we were going to talk about, I'll swing it back to you. It's what do you really value? But in terms of purity, just pure, Steph and Clay for me. But you can also make the case, it may not be as flashy. Steve Nash fits the bill of some of those things, very things that Dame said, coming off pick and roll. Steve Nash has what I think 12 seasons of over 40% from the three, 50,
Right.
40, 90 club, like
Right.
hits 6, 7 threes a game in its prime. So if you look at his stats, I was like, oh, Steve Nash, and Steve Nash could give it to you off the dribble. He's not flashy, but he could give it to you off the dribble, off the pick and roll, because all he did was run pick and roll, and he
Uh-huh.
could catch and shoot. So I think for me it would be a battle between Dame or Nash, but I think Dame was more clutch. That's kind of my thing. So I think
And
he's in the conversation.
I think it's one of those things where we're in this. I'm gonna lead this into this conversation as far as
Okay.
the shooters, but
Okay.
I definitely agree. It's one of those things where you agree with his statement,
Right, right, right.
but you can possibly disagree with
The
his
rankings.
where he ranks,
Yeah.
because now we get I always mess up his name. His name was originally Chris Johnson.
Rauf, Mahmoud
Right.
Rauf.
Yes,
I was thinking about him too.
because
Right.
then he
Yeah.
goes into that conversation. You get the Craig Hodges that goes into that conversation. You get the Jerry West that goes into that conversation. You get
Yeah.
the Larry Birds, Glenn Rice, Ray Allen, Reggie
Your
Miller,
your boy Steve Kerr, number one all time for field
right?
goal. Yeah.
Steve Kerr, Chris Mullin.
Yeah.
Like there's a list of shooters. So you never want anybody to feel like, oh, we just straight up, because people get
Mm-hmm.
so enamored with what's going on right now that they just be like, oh yeah, this is the greatest game I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
Like what we were talking about, like I see people tweet that about the World Cup, and I'm like, can we just enjoy the game?
Yeah. Recency bias is a hell of a drug,
Right.
man. Yeah.
Like I get it, like the Raiders thing. That is the
Oh,
craziest thing I've ever seen a game. The craziest way I've ever seen a game ended
in
in
years.
my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's a wild thing to say, but to be like, this is the greatest game I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And there's all types of soccer that go on a yearly basis. There's
Mhm.
all types of basketball, baseball, and hockey, college, amateur,
Yeah.
professional. Like it's just, I think that the recency bias is crazy to me. But to lead this conversation, before I start naming off people that I
Mhm.
have in my five, I
Okay.
think that Dame has a legitimate shot because it's one of those things. Now that he has an Anthony Simons, he had
Mm.
CJ, he now has the ability to show I can go off the dribble. I mean,
Mhm.
I can be off ball. I
Mhm.
can be an
Yeah.
off ball coming off of screens. But he showed that at a high level, he could shoot as the main ball handler, where Reggie, Chris Mullin, Larry Bird is probably the best prior to Steph on like the ball handler shooter at that we had seen.
Right.
outside of maybe like a Glenn Rice or Ray Allen, because most shooters are like the Rip Hamiltons of the world. Most shooters are coming off ball. So now, when you really only have so many ball handler shooters, that's where this conversation can start to take a turn for me. And that's where I think that
It's
is
tough.
you obviously have Steph. You
Yeah.
obviously, for me, I still think that Larry Bird gets slighted in a lot of ways.
Okay.
And although his numbers
Yeah, it's different. It's different.
is
He can.
is one of those things where like I'm just projecting at this point,
Yeah. He has
because
a
when you
left
look at
hand
his
though.
numbers, he averaged 38% from three, but he only shot the most he ever shot was 3.3 threes a game.
Which is
So that is
crazy to
just
me.
which is
Yeah.
only 3 threes a game.
Right.
So you're telling me he's only hitting 1 3 a game, and this is one of the best shooters of all time?
Would you take your boy Steve Kerr? Because
As
I
best
mean,
shooters,
he was clutch. He was clutch
he
for
was
the
definitely
Spurs.
clutch, but best shooters,
Yeah.
I'm
I
definitely not
mean,
taking him over Clay.
oh yeah, I want to take him over Clay,
I
but
would
it's
take him over Dame.
okay. It's funny that he coaches the backcourt too, though. That's why I think it's. I
Right.
feel like he's somewhere like in the top 10 or.
Hey,
I mean,
where's Dirk in that conversation too?
like Dirk was getting contested too, man. You know, so like Dirk has to be there. Dirk was 50, 40, 90 with it. He
Right.
was doing one leg step backs. Like he influenced guys like Kobe to do a one leg step back.
And then you
You know,
gotta put the KDs of the world in there too.
KD, another one. As DJ Khaled would say, another one. Like you know what I'm
So
saying?
for me, I think
Game
my five,
seven.
and I'm gonna rattle off my five
Okay, let me hear your five, man. Let me hear your five.
because this is gonna be tough.
Game seven, Ben Gordon.
Right. And
Hey,
Ben Gordon was another one.
he was going shot for shot.
If I'm
Man.
literally just talking about the art of shooting,
That's why. Yeah, that's what I think. The art of shooting. That's the thing. But I feel like it's two different lists, maybe.
right?
Like, feel
Yeah,
me?
just literally the art of shooting.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
that you gotta have Steph, Dame,
Okay.
KD.
Mhm.
That's where like I want to give Raul some love because
Yeah.
I seen him put on some shooting clinics that's just like crazy, like just hitting the same spot,
He can still shoot it to this day
right?
too.
Like just hitting the same spot on any like or from the wing spot, just banks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so
There's
I
always
would
that
love to
guy.
throw him in there, but his resume, because of the circumstances, if you know the history on
Right.
that, if you don't, look that up. So
And
I
there's some
think you
people
got to
I
go
have
with
no
those
problem with
three.
either. Go
Those
ahead.
three, you got to go Clay in there because
Yeah, Clay.
he's just his trigger is so quick.
Right. I feel like I'm thinking.
And then Ray Allen at that.
Right.
That's
Oh
those are
yeah,
my
yeah.
five.
Shuttlesworth, Jesus. Yeah,
Yeah, those
you
are
gotta
my
have
five.
Jesus. Yeah, you gotta have Jesus Shuttlesworth, man.
Because I gotta put a big in there because if we're just gonna do,
Yeah.
let's just say like you're doing like a Mount Rushmore
Okay.
of your greatest shooters,
Mm-hmm. I'm picking Katie.
right? You gotta have
I'm
a
picking
Steph.
Katie and Dirk. Katie and Dirk.
You gotta have a Steph. You gotta have a
Yeah.
Dame in there
Yeah.
because of the shots that he's hit, like the
Mhm.
clutch threes that he's hit. Because if we're gonna take Steph and say the evolution of the three, you gotta continue that conversation with Dame.
Yeah.
Then at that point, you get the likes of a KD. You get, yeah, that's what it sucks. I'm gonna have to take Larry off my list.
Hey, I understand it. I understand it, man. Because it's funny because even like I remember, what was it? They used to say like 2K used to say Larry. They would mess with Larry's 3-point rating because they said he wasn't really like that. I don't know, man. It's just a different era. It's a different. We have video footage of hitting it with the left hand. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So I think Larry was probably real good. It's just that I feel like the volume and the era, like you said,
Right.
like it just wasn't there. So we don't really know. You know?
Because I mean,
Right.
like, if we just go strictly talk about his ability to make shots, he shot 50%.
Right, and he would tell you what
on the
he was
field.
going to do.
Right. Like he had years where, as a ball handler,
Yeah.
he was shooting 50%, 49, 52, 49.6,
Mm-hmm.
52.5, 52.7. And these are
Wow.
all while averaging 23, 24, 25, 29, 26, 28, 30,
Mm.
while also averaging, getting you a couple blocks, a couple steals, 6 assists, 8 assists, 7 assists. He's pretty much doing the LeBron Lucas stats in the
Yeah.
80s while also not known for being athletic.
And we can't. And you got guys like Capono and Corver. Kyle Corver
Right.
stayed there, man. And the greatest 3-point shooter of all time, 3-point shootout, Karl Anthony Towns, man.
And then you got
Hey
like the
yo,
likes of
man.
like a Craig Hodges. Craig Hodges was known as the best 3-point shooter in the
Yeah.
NBA when he had the issue where he gave the letter to the president. And
Right.
then pretty much he was kicked out of the league at that point. So like
Yeah.
you have people like that where it's like then you get the JJ Redick's, the better basketball guy. Like
Mm-hmm.
these are also people that like you got to throw them in there. So now at this point you got to give me your 5, bro. It's your turn.
All right. So it's
Stop
my
stalling.
turn. It's my turn. All right. Number 1, Steph Curry. Number 2, Klay Thompson. Number 3. Are we talking pure shooters or just because
I
you
was
did
talking
pure shooters, right? Oh,
shoot,
it
yeah,
doesn't.
just pure shooting.
Oh,
Just pure shooting ability.
pure shooting ability. Okay. Steph, Clay, Ray. That just sounds right. All right. Man, you made that tough on me, bro. So now I feel the pressure. Steph, Clay, Ray. Nash was a cold one. Nash was cold with it. Nash was real cold with it as a shooter. But I'm trying to think. I think I'm going Kerr. I think I'm gonna go Kerr. I'm gonna go with the coach of the Warriors. And then I'm putting Dame in there. I'm just gonna put in Dame. You know why? Because of everything he just said. And I just feel like if you line them up and say, okay, everyone just start shooting from the logo, after a certain point, people are gonna start falling off, and it's gonna be
Yeah.
Steph and Dame. So Dame is a caveat. So Dame's my 5. How
The
about
thing
that?
for the thing for me is like you seen that clip in
Yeah,
the Last Dance where they're doing like the trick
yeah,
shots
yeah.
and they're shooting from the logo. But you see these dudes are literally taking 2 steps while shooting. So it's like when you start to have a certain conversation, you
Mm-hmm.
see Dame's doing step backs from this
Right.
distance
Boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
to send people home
Right.
in the playoffs. So I think that it just takes a different mentality. It's a different type. It's a different level of shooting.
Yeah. He's top 5 for me just because I'll never forget. Because remember, we all remember the when Paul George said that's a bad shot, right? And so
Right.
Dame's like, you should check, my resume or check whatever. And they actually did an ESPN or it was ESPN or ESPN Plus or something. They did a breakdown of Damian Lillard, his percentage shooting from like the logo or like a certain part, pretty much from the logo, it was like 43% or whatever. So at some point in time, bro, like it is what
Right.
it is. And now we have multiple seasons of him shooting it from a high clip. Dame, just off the strength, he's 5 for me. I might take out Kerr for Mahmoud Abdul Rauf for number 4 though.
Yeah. Just because I'm just saying, bro, like his ability to just straight shoot, just
Yeah,
like pure shooting off the
yeah,
dribble, going left, going
yeah.
right,
Might be
off
tough too.
glass, all net,
Oh
pressure
yeah.
situations.
Yeah, he's. I'm taking Kerr off. I gotta put my mood there. I gotta take my mood. I might go. Steph, Mahmoud, Clay, Ray, and Dame.
Right.
So there
I'm
you
with it,
go.
man. I definitely agree. I think it's an interesting conversation. It's one of those things we can literally there could be a whole hour segment on just
Right.
shooting.
Yep.
Just shooters. This is just shooters shooting the brat. But
Jordan, yeah, go ahead.
on to the next one. Messi,
Hmm.
my favorite soccer player of all time, gets that World Cup victory.
Hmm.
And I think that of all his accolades, being able to one get the goal for himself, set up goals for his teammates, the amount of championships just in his individual sport on his team, like just like in the league that he plays in,
Yeah.
while also the amount of awards that he has being the best soccer player in the world, which is
Hmm.
also one of those things where like they always say, "Oh, in NBA you're the world champion," but you're not really the world champion because you didn't play teams from other countries and things of that sort. You only played, which really a lot of times they try to say the NBA is the best league in the world. So I guess if you look at it from that standpoint, but there's still guys that made it to the NBA who would rather just play overseas. You get the mirror attentions. You get
Yeah.
what was it, Juan Carlos? I remember he played for the Grizzlies. He was like, "Yeah, I'm good. Go take me back
Yeah,
to
I'm going
Spain."
over to the league. Yeah, take me all the way back to Spain.
And so, but Messi is a multi award winner and being the best soccer player in the world, which it is the most global sport we have of all the sports. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you can tell by everything I just mentioned where I stand on this.
Yeah.
but is but is Messi the GOAT because he has played in the era with Cristiano Ronaldo?
Yeah, because Ronaldo was his contemporary, and he pretty much has accomplished what Ronaldo wasn't able to accomplish here, and probably put the nail in the coffin, so to speak, with the World Cup. The World Cup win was what was eluding him, the elusive World Cup victory, which you had guys. You talk about Pele and Maradona, excuse me, and the people who are people talk about in those types of arguments in terms of the greatest of all time, and Messi has a La Liga. He has all the different accolades. If you go down the list of accolades, he has multiple. Like he has boom, 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 boom. I was actually trying to pull up my notes. My other laptop does not want to cooperate with me because I like to always present those people with those achievements and give the players their proper recognition. And then you look at, let's take away from the accolades, Ralph. Look at the type of run that he went on at the age of 35. Right. So being at the age, while he may, age and attrition has caught up a little bit, and he's not the same player, and he's not the best soccer player right now, right? He did have that run, and he was integral in terms of the run, in terms of the final game, the World Cup final game, and what he was able to produce on the field. Excuse me, like stumbled over my words. So I think that when you do the combination of his accolades, his actual soccer ability, right, and finally capping it off in terms of having the World Cup. So now he can join, Maradona from his own country who actually has that. So that can't be held over him.
Right,
And he's better than his contemporary, or looked at and deemed at by his peers, than over Ronaldo. Now it's like he kind of went through every single checkbox, and he finally got the creme de la creme, so to speak, with this World Cup victory. So all encompassing as of today, I feel like his GOAT case, or whatever mantle that we want to give him, has been solidified. So there you go. I agree with you.
I definitely. Then when you start looking at his accolades, he has almost 800 goals
That's insane.
for club or country.
Yeah.
Given and then he's won. He's the first player in history to have five.
Hmm.
As was it? He's won six European gold shoes,
Okay.
while also 7 times he's been the best player, been voted as the best player in the world
Hmm.
throughout his career. Now it is one of those things where, and I've had this conversation with my brother just recently. I think that he's the GOAT for now
Okay.
because when you start to look at who he actually was able to get the victory against, Mbappe is 23 years old. This is
Yeah.
his second World Cup.
I would say he's the best right now.
He's probably the best right
Mhm.
now. You still got the likes of a Neymar who balls out, but for some reason he just gets hurt in World Cups. It's just the weirdest, wildest. situation.
That's strange, isn't it? Yeah.
He just always gets hurt. Like someone literally broke his back in the last one. Like he got
Bruh.
kneed in the back and they broke a vertebrae in his back.
Bruh. There's a voodoo doll somewhere. Someone's
And then
messing
he
with that
sprained
voodoo
his
doll.
ankle in this one.
It's a voodoo doll, man. I'm telling you.
But Mbappe and what he was able to do at 18, 19 years old in the last one, in the last World Cup where France actually won.
Mm-hmm.
Then what he's been able to do, I think he plays for PSG, and I think they just won a La Liga situation, and so or European championship, where Messi has 11 championships for just his club, and so I think that Mbappe has an opportunity because he's pretty much has that beginning of the career where he's already $100 million man, the face of his club. You see him on international commercials. I'm trying to remember what company he's with, whether it's Nike or Adidas.
Okay.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but he has all of the makings. He had a hat trick while also having a penalty kick goal in that final, bringing them down from 2-0, and he scored all of their goals. And so I think that he has an opportunity. So I'm going to say Messi is the GOAT as we currently speak, but I'm actually really curious to see what happens with Mbappe.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in agreement with you on that.
And then we got a little bit of time, so we're going to spend a couple minutes. We brought it up before, Jalen Hurts' injury and what it means for the Eagles. So what does it mean for his MVP chances now? What does it mean for the Eagles and the rest of this playoff picture?
I think currently, I think they can get through the regular season unscathed. I don't have any problems with issues with that. It's an 18-week schedule, so pretty much they'll probably play like 2 more games, and I expect them to start to rest their starters. I think in terms of their playoffs, though, for me, there's always cause for concern when we look at shoulder injuries because it's throwing. I'm not quite sure if the shoulder injuries. I don't want to put out any false information, Ralph. If it's on his throwing shoulder, I would assume it is, though.
It is.
Because they've been talking about it. Okay.
It's his throwing shoulder.
So I got to see what type of grade shoulder injury that is. If it was anything, if there's a tear, etc. So I would have to go back and really do a thorough research on that. But I think they'll be okay in terms of just having the coaching, the play calling that they've done, and the talent. So we're gonna see what they can get out of Gardner Minshew. And also it will come down to, and may lead into another segment in terms of, teams in the NFC. No one in the NFC, for me personally, outside of the 49ers, if I'm the Eagles, would I really fear or that I see as a threat to the Eagles. And I think now people have been, not necessarily thinking injury, but I think people have tried to nitpick the Eagles and talk about their schedule and all that kind of stuff. And they played who's in front of them, and they've beaten people in the fashion that they should beat them in. And obviously the Bears, they gave them a little bit of work, but I think that's more of a testament to the Bears team actually being a little bit better than we think because of Justin Fields. I think he's coming to his own. I think he's surrounded with weapons. I think that they have some talent there. So it's going to come down to coaching, organization stuff. So I think the Bears could actually be one of those teams on the come up next year, kind of like how the Lions have been this year. So overall, though, I think we'll just have to monitor the shoulder injury. If it's super severe, it would give me cause for concern. But I think that they have the pieces in the coaching, because coaching is what matters. We've seen that this year. I think that would be the hashtag for me for the NFL this season is coaching matters, as the Ravens. So I think that the Eagles are going to be okay overall, because I don't think it's more about the threats in the NFC, Ralph. For me, I don't really see any clear-cut like threat outside of the 49ers.
Yeah, it's one of those things for me. We talked about this before. Regardless of how good the Vikings record is,
yeah,
you got to show me in the playoffs.
Yeah, I only believe in Justin Jefferson on that team and Cook.
Exactly. And so when you start to look at the playoff picture when it comes to the Eagles, you got the 49ers, who possibly have the best defense in football.
Yes.
Great. You got the Cowboys, which is a good division rivalry, but we'll see how Dak and that offense performs in the playoffs. Then you got the Buccaneers, who are going to get in the playoffs because that division is just trash.
Right.
And you never know what happens with Tom Brady in the playoffs. But
I mean,
Played
last
like
time,
trash. He's played like
yeah,
trash last couple of weeks, so I'm not
yeah.
expecting
So
much
I'm
from
not
him.
expecting anything. I'm like, last time he was in there, they didn't get it done. So yeah,
Exactly. And so in the big picture of it all, I don't think that it's gonna hold him back much because when you go and you look at all the reports now, we talk about media all the time, the new media, old media, uh, bias,
hmm
unbiased, trying to be the first to get reports versus just giving out true information. So I'm not. You can take it for what it is, but his coach hasn't officially ruled him out yet.
hmm
Everybody talks about how tough he is as a player. So you would, if it was that bad of an injury, it would be like he wouldn't be playing at all.
hmm
It's just talked about as it's assumed because of the throwing shoulder sprain and the fact that they're 13-1, which puts them 2 games out in front of the Vikings. So I'm like, you would expect for him to miss this game, and
yeah.
so great segue into our next topic: NFL
hmm
contenders and pretenders.
Okay.
First up, their opponent this week, the Cowboys. Are they pretenders? Or are they contenders?
All right, ready for it? I believe that the Dallas Cowboys are pretenders. They're pretenders. I think for them, Ralph, when I look at them, I can I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just have to do it. And people say don't do history and all that kind of stuff. And you have to look at what it is. But in terms of how they played last game, um, I the Cowboys, it's call me biased. I have my reasons to believe that they're pretenders. I have my reason for I just and I think we both have them, you know what I'm saying? But I think their defense is really, really good. But I believe that Dak doesn't raise the ceiling for that team at all. He's just not a ceiling raiser. And I feel like we've seen this over and over and over and again. And so I'm gonna say that they're pretenders. I'm not even gonna stick with it. So what do you have? Pretenders or contenders?
I agree with you too, man. Like at the midway point of the season, I probably would have said I most likely would have said contenders because of how great and how strong that defense looked. But over the last couple of weeks, I don't know if it's because of the strength of schedule and playing down to your opponent
Mm-hmm.
versus playing up when it really matters. So we'll see how they get up for this game. But I think that it's for me from what I've seen, Dak hasn't performed well consistently. CD hasn't performed well consistently. The only thing that's consistent for them is that running game
Yeah, Pollard
with,
and all them. Yeah.
with Pollard and Zeke.
And Zeke.
Zeke having his resurgence, but also being that 1-2 punch where it's just not counted on Zeke to be that Bill that Bill Kyle running back. And
Yeah.
so I think that from what I've seen, I'm gonna say pretenders,
Yeah.
but take my opinion with a grain of salt. You know I can't stand the Cowboys. Next up, Ravens. Are they
Biggest
pretenders?
mhm.
Or are they contenders?
Biggest contenders, and I don't I mean this in no disrespectful manner to the players, but they're the biggest frauds in the NFL. And I'm not even gonna go into because we talked about them how many times this whole entire year, right? And I sent you a thing yesterday. I mean earlier today. The wide receiver room they've recorded one receiving touchdown,
Right.
and that wasn't since week 3. They have not scored a receiving touchdown. Everyone since week 3 of the NFL. We're going to week 16. They um they had close to 200 yards rushing versus the Cleveland Browns, who had the worst rush defense in 22 years. Repeat, in 22 years since the year 2000. Right, the worst rush defense in the NFL, and in the last 22 years, they had about 200 yards rushing, and they only were able to score 3 points because Greg Roman, what he does well is run. He went away from the run game and decided to put the ball in Tyler Huntley's hands, drop back 33 times, past 30, and he threw an interception, had no touchdowns, had 150 passing yards. We've been talking about it on this show. We talked about it on TV as well. It was talked about on TV. Our It's not even like our offense is anemic. It's just non-existent without Lamar Jackson. Receivers are hurt. Play calling is poor, Ralph. They scored 10 points versus the Broncos, 16 versus the Steelers, 3 versus the Browns, and like They poured all the resources into the defense, and their offense is just bad. Their philosophy doesn't make sense. If you let me keep talking, I would go on for an hour, so I'm not. They're the biggest. Like you can tell, I'm fed up, bro. They got me effed up, man. So yeah, the Ravens are they're literally even if Lamar comes back, they're the biggest pretenders in the NFL, and it's sad because it's a contract year and everything, and they're gonna move on from old boy. This I'm there. It's a disgrace, man. It is a disgrace. So we're gonna get off that, bro, and move to the Dolphins because it's sad. Think about what I just told you. We haven't scored a receiving touchdown since week 3. I've never heard that in any league.
Right,
So,
right. And it's crazy because you look at their record; they're still in it. So
right.
it's one of those things where like I think it's unfair to put all of this on Lamar
He's not even in it.
because because it's like prior to he had them in the playoff push where they were so high in the AFC, but you got to look at what everything that they're dealing with, where it's so unfair because you get Bateman gets hurt, Duvernay gets hurt, and
Mhm.
they signed somebody just
They
recently,
signed Sammy Watkins again.
Sammy Watkins, yeah, and it's like that's not even an upgrade,
Right. It
and
was just like
so
last year.
it's like it's so unfair to Lamar because he's gonna get a chunk of that blame. So it's
Yeah.
just like, but at the same time, it's time for Greg Roman to get. It's time to move on. I
Move
hope
on.
that the pressure from the fans becomes to a certain point where it's like, hey, you got to go. And
Yeah.
I think that at this point, we got to start looking at getting weapons for like wide receiver weapons,
Right.
not just get more and more running backs.
And tight ends.
It right is you got another tight end who's good, but then can we get some wide receivers, please?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Okay.
up next, Dolphins, pretenders, contenders.
You know, I've gotten I was into the Dolphins and I got off the Dolphins and I gave Adriel grief about the Dolphins. My boy Adriel, shout out to Adriel. I'm gonna go with the Dolphins are contenders. I actually like them. They played the Bills close both times. I do believe that weather had a huge factor in both games, like me and you talked about off record, off the air. But the Dolphins, just because they have the pieces, they do have a good play caller, which matters. Um, they're they've hung with the Bills. They beat the Bills. They have they you need to be able to make explosive plays in the playoffs at least once. They have those guys. Um, it's just going to be can Tua raise a level we've never seen Tua in the playoffs. We never saw Joe Burrow in the playoffs. We saw what he did. I'm not saying he's Joe Burrow, but I'm going to give the Dolphins a chance before I write them off. So I'm going to say that the Dolphins are contenders because after that it starts to get kind of murky. I mean, we have the Chiefs and stuff, but are the Chargers contenders? Are the Ravens contenders? Are the Titans are contenders? No, not really. So I'm gonna say the Dolphins are one of the 3 to 4 contenders in the AFC to be able to make it to the Super Bowl. For me personally.
And I think that it just depends on where who's because they're obviously not going to win their division.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and we just saw the way that they played when it started snowing
Mm-hmm.
in Buffalo. So if they got to go to Buffalo, if
If they
they
yeah,
have to
they're not
go
gonna win. Yeah, I don't think they win in
right,
Buffalo.
like if you got to think about like they play in a warm stadium,
Mm-hmm.
so it just depends on how well they play or who they play, who they match up with. Because Kansas City can get cold. I don't
Yeah.
really know Tennessee to be that cold.
No, not really. Not really. But Kansas City's their defense, like you would know, their defense really ain't like that. They have
Right,
some guys, but this year it's once again it's kind of like that up and down.
right.
So
So I think that it's about the matchup. Honestly, I think that
yeah.
the Dolphins are contenders because when you have that type of offense,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
it's going to put you in some games where like the Bengals, the
Yeah.
Chiefs, Buffalo, they can just put points on the board like that.
Ah,
But at the end of the day, when you
Bengals.
start thinking about that, when it comes to
Bengals.
playoff football, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Don't try to
Yeah.
reinvent the wheel. The
Yeah.
Dolphins had that game, but they went away from running the football. As soon as it
Yes.
got cold, they just stopped running the football. And I don't understand
Yeah.
it. I don't get it. I just be sitting there watching football, and I'll just be like, bro, I don't know if it's the old head in me, but run the ball, bro. Just run the dang ball. And then with that, y'all, we got to get up out of here.
Yeah.
Only got a little bit of time left, but make sure you follow all of our socials. Make sure you go like, subscribe, share the video, share the pod if you love it, if you like it. If you don't, let us know why. But we got to get up out of here. We got audio versions coming over the next couple weeks, and we out of here. Peace out, y'all.
Peace.